Hello YouTube, this is Mike. Welcome to the channel. The 4 things that heal BPD and NPD relationship abuse. So, as I said, my name is Mike, and I am a survivor of a very toxic, destructive romantic relationship with somebody whom I believe had untreated, undiagnosed borderline personality disorder, and probably a bunch of other things. And so what I do on this channel is I share my experience, how I completely healed myself from that relationship. And I share my understanding about what it's like to somebody, if you don't have a personality disorder, what it's like for you if you get into a relationship with a narcissist or a borderline. And in my experience, that's a niche that YouTube just doesn't really have. There's not really anybody out there making channels like this, exactly like this. There might be a couple. I haven't seen very many, but there's plenty of places to go if you're a borderline and you want to hear a doctor talk about BPD, or if you want to hear other borderlines talk about their scenario. There's plenty of places to go if you're still wounded and you want to buy into the whole super empath thing and destroy the narcissist. But there's not very many people out there with our experience. You're not a borderline, you don't have a personality disorder, but you've been in a relationship with one and it has damaged you to the point where you can't even move on with your life. So before we get any further, borderlines do watch my channel. And based on what I've seen, I'm not an expert, so I don't know, I can't tell you what I know for sure, but what I've seen, it looks like borderlines can learn to manage their symptoms and have successful functioning relationships. It looks like DBT therapy seems to be a very good one. And on my channel, for those that want to recover from the other side of their relationship, I say there are 4 things to do. So I've been asked by people with BPD, what should I do? Well, if I were to give an answer, it would say, here are the 3 things you should do, in my opinion. Get DBT therapy from a qualified therapist. Do the workbook, like every single day for the rest of your life. Do those exercises that they have in that workbook. And then get into some group therapy. That's really important. I've heard that that's what works. At least that's been very successful with some people. If you have a healthy relationship with a borderline, I'm not talking about you. Stop telling me I'm stigmatizing you. I'm not. If you are a borderline and you have great relationships, stop yelling at me. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the untreated, undiagnosed, and or toxic borderline or narcissist that you got in a relationship with and you're still suffering. So here's the thing. Normal relationships, quote unquote, normal relationships, when they end, they can be devastating. There can be a lot of damage, but as they say, time heals all. Just taking time and working through it and crying through it, you will heal. But that is not the case if you've been in a relationship with a toxic narcissist or a borderline. And I was thinking about this today, and I was thinking about the dynamic, because what you'll see in a lot of the comments that I get is you will see that there will be people who respond to me who they bristle when I say blanket statements like, if you've been in a relationship with a borderline for more than, it doesn't really matter, you've survived one split and you've come back for more. If that's happened, by definition, you are a codependent. And people don't like hearing that. They don't like saying that they're a codependent. And I understand. So let me just connect with you, because I understand why you feel that way. The reason why you feel that way is that based on your hindsight, as you look back in life, you had it together. You were functional. Maybe, okay, you were sensitive, you were an empath, whatever, but you didn't see this coming. You didn't ask for this. And when you got into this quicksand, when you stepped into this bear trap, when you got onto the hamster wheel and you couldn't get off and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse, you felt as though you had been targeted, manipulated, they had seduced you and had really really did a number on you, and that's not your fault. And so when I come along and say, if you've been in a relationship with a borderline and you've lasted for, one split or more, by definition you're a codependent, you think that I'm criticizing you. You think that I'm telling you it's your fault, you're a bad person. And you want to say, I'm not a bad person. I went in there and I honestly wanted to love them, and I got my ass kicked and I got, it was horrible. Don't tell me that it's my fault. And this is a very common thing. It's very common with codependence. So I don't want to get into the whole what is codependence and what is the dynamic of codependence. You can watch other videos where I talk about that. But what is accurate about that, which I also experienced, because, I was in 12-step work for, almost 40 years when I met mine. I had been in therapy and in group therapy off and on for 25 years. I thought I knew everything there was to know about, healing from psychological dysfunctional relationships. I thought I knew it all. And then I got involved with an untreated borderline, and I had no idea what I was in for. And I got torn to shreds, and all of that knowledge, all 40 years of combined of all of that knowledge, did not protect me from the hell that I started to experience. And I'd never experienced anything like that. And I had a real respect. I was like, okay, this I don't know how to handle this. So I understand what you're saying. And as I was thinking about it, it's sort of like, and here's, if you want to recover, this is my experience, maybe this will be helpful for you, is that if you look at it as though, like, sometimes there are weaknesses within the body or in the immune system that stay hidden. Like people who get certain types of illnesses, those illnesses stay hidden, and then something will trigger it. And then that weakness within the body, weakness within the immune system will be triggered, and then it will explode. And you never saw it coming. This is what codependence is. You didn't know you had it, many of you. And then all of a sudden, somebody had the ability to absolutely trigger that and make it not only, allow you to become aware of what level of codependence you may have had brewing under the surface, whatever unresolved issues you had with your parents brewing under the surface. This was somebody that seemingly expertly came along and pulled it out and then magnified it. And so from your perspective, yeah, it's like, no, I didn't ask for this. I didn't see this coming. I didn't have this problem before I met them. They did it to me. But in my experience, now that it's been poked at and prodded and exploded by some outside impetus that you didn't see coming or weren't prepared for. And perhaps maybe you could have gone the rest of your life if you hadn't run into that borderline or gotten into that relationship. Perhaps you could have gone through the rest of your life and you would have been able to keep that under wraps and maybe not even know it was there. But now that it's been brought to light and it's been empowered and now it's draining you of all of your life force, you need some help to understand it. So with that in mind, I'm going to take a look at some comments. Bear in mind, if you make a comment on my channel or ask a question, the whole world can see it anyway. And if I think it's worthy of a discussion, it means that I have asked the same question, had the same feelings, and many other people do. And so this is an excellent time to address it. It's not my intention to cause trauma to anybody. But you may not like what I have to say, and that's okay with me. All right, so this person, I have interacted with this person before. I think it was months before. And of course, whenever somebody interacts with me, after the first interaction, I may do something to connect with you and to relate. But then I say, do the 4 things. And if you hang around and you come back months later and you obviously haven't done the 4 things, I'm going to be less compassionate, because if I hand you a cure, I didn't say the cure, if I hand you a cure and you choose not to take it, who's at fault? Not me. Not even the person that inflicted the pain on you. At that point, it's you, because you're not putting the effort into healing yourself. It's one thing if there is no cure, but if somebody hands you a cure and you don't even give it a try, then again, who's to blame? So what are the 4 things? This whole channel is named on the 4 things. To heal from the destructive relationship. And that's the only thing I'm guaranteeing. If you do the 4 things, I guarantee you will heal from that relationship. I don't know how long it'll take, but I guarantee you it will happen. The rest of your issues, your unresolved psychological issues, unfortunately, you'll have to deal with those for the rest of your life. But you won't have to worry about that relationship anymore. That won't be a cause of pain for you. 4 things are: first, you must go no contact. That means you make it impossible for them to contact you. You say, I can't do that. I have a kid with them. I understand. Nevertheless, that's what you have to do. So you get a lawyer, and you have the lawyer be the go-between. You have to set up time to pick up the kid and give the kid back. You do it through a lawyer. It's too expensive. I'm sorry. You're the one that chose to have unprotected sex with somebody whom you now know has a serious mental disorder. So you chose to have a kid. These kinds of things happen. Number 2, you work all 12 steps of CODA.org or whatever 12-step program you prefer with a sponsor. You can't do it alone. You can't just go on the website, look at the 12 steps and say, I've done them. You have to actually do them with somebody else. Then sponsor somebody else. If you haven't done that, then guess what? You haven't done thing number 2. Thing number 3 is work with a therapist, preferably a PhD psychologist who understands cluster B personality disorder and the outfall, the codependent relationship associate. And then, number 4, do some kind of daily meditation. I don't care what kind. Actually, this is just step 11, but it's worthy of repeating. Do those 4 things. This is what the channel is all about. That's really the most important thing. All the other talk that I do about borderlines and borderline personality disorder and codependence, even if I'm on target or if I'm pulling stuff out of my ass, sometimes I'm really good at figuring things out. Borderlines will tell me, yeah, you understand me better than anybody. But sometimes I get things off, and some things are true and some things are partially true and all that. All that stuff is fun to talk about, and if it gets you engaged to do the 4 things, that's all I care. But the only thing that matters is doing the 4 things. The rest of it is all talk. All right, so those are the 4 things. Now, I can tell, as I said, if you've done the 4 things, I'm gonna know. I'm gonna know if you are in the process of recovery. And anybody who's in that process of recovery is also gonna know. And you'll look back in hindsight when you hear other people come in and they start talking about this and I'm not that, and you're gonna laugh and you go, yep, I remember. I used to say that same thing before I did the 4 things, but now I know. So it's not because I'm psychic, it's just because I've been there and it takes one to know one. So this person has been on my channel for a while, and as I said, we have interacted before, and I remember specifically telling this person to do the 4 things. So guess what? Here it is weeks or months later, and the person has the same issue. And I completely relate to the issue. I was there. And so I won't mention his name, but he says, and bear in mind, listen to the length of time. What it took me 2 months to heal from the relationship. And before those 2 months, I was saying, you can go back and hear me, my first videos. You can hear me saying, I think I'm broken. I think she broke me. I'm not saying that anymore. That was, it took me 2 months to heal. It might take you longer, but you can heal. Here's what happens when you don't do anything. As I've said before, being with a borderline, what will happen is it's like being bitten by, a zombie. You're going to get the zombie virus. You won't become a borderline, but you will at the very least have to fight with that. And the self-doubt, the shame, the insecurity, the rumination, the anxiety, the trauma, the continuous trauma, it's not going to go away with time. Unlike a normal relationship, even, somebody dies on you. I've experienced that. Or you have a divorce. I've experienced that. It heals. This doesn't heal. It gets worse. Don't believe me? Listen to somebody else. Says, it's been over 2 years now, and I can't seem to pull myself away from this individual. I've tried to block her number and go through so much withdrawal. So bear in mind, of course, this person has obviously heard me say, step number 1 is you have to go no contact, which means that you don't sit around waiting for them to contact you. And if they haven't contacted you in 2 weeks, you say, yeah, I've been in no contact for 2 weeks. No, that doesn't count. Because emotionally, psychologically, and if you're willing to believe it, energetically, psychically, you are still connected, which doesn't go away. So when you make the decision, when you say going no contact means I'm going to crush my phone, throw it in the river, I'm going to move, I'm going to sell my house, I'm going to get a restraining order, I'm going to get a lawyer so that only the lawyer talks. When you do that and you absolutely make it impossible for them to contact you, then that's when the shift begins. Before that, you're still in it. So this person knows, has heard me say, you have to go no contact, and to their credit, they're being honest, and they're saying, I can't seem to pull myself away from this individual. I've tried to block her number, which means that he blocked it and then unblocked it, because then he says, and I go through so much withdrawal. So he's not gone no contact. Now, this is why. Why do you think I say working 12 steps is necessary? Because what is the first step? I'm powerless over. So as long as you think you have some power, you're going to be eaten alive. This person is acting exactly like an addict. And as I've said before, even though you're not taking a chemical, you're not addicted to a chemical, an external chemical like alcohol or something else, the brain releases dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin and all kinds of other things which are absolutely associated with the trauma bond. There is an addiction to that. And even the withdrawal of, I can't let go of her, I can't unblock the phone, what's happening on Facebook with her, you're going to have all of those chemicals keeping you in the craziness of it. So there really is no difference. From an internal perspective, what he's saying, we could replace her with heroin. So let's do that. It's been over 2 years now since I stopped taking heroin, and I can't seem to pull myself away from the drug. I've tried to throw my heroin in the trash and go through so much withdrawal. There's no difference. It's the exact same feeling. He goes on to say, she knows she can't give me the commitment I'm looking for, but I can't seem to walk away. I appreciate the honesty. It has taken over my life to a point of complete obsession. I know my own demons from childhood are keeping me in this push-pull need for her love. It's so hard to move on. My pain is excruciating. This is what people who haven't been in a relationship with a borderline won't understand. And this is something borderlines don't understand. Oh my God, why are you being so full on? Why are you being so intense? Why are you being so dramatic? I'm just breaking up with you. Because that's not what's happening here. Borderlines, when they're in denial, and I may get, if I have time, I'll read it. A borderline came on and basically castigated everybody who's not a borderline, and anybody who says that they've been abused by a borderline is the abuser. And borderlines, there's no such thing as borderline abuse, and this is somebody who obviously just doesn't have a clue about what the dynamic is, what separates borderline abuse from just narcissistic abuse. And one of it is what this guy's going through. What this guy is saying, even though of course he had his own, as he said, his own demons that he brought with him, but the borderline was the scalpel that poked it in just the right place to really, and then fed it so that it would explode into the situation he's in now, where he can't walk away, and it's excruciating. But I've told this guy before, and I'll tell him again, you have to do the 4 things. There's no other way out. No amount of self-analysis will help you. Sitting around thinking about it, trying to look at yourself, will not help you. I know I'm a drug addict, but I know why I do it, but it's a waste of time. You will not be able to think yourself out of it. The only thing that will get you out of it is action. And those are the 4 things. I know my own demons from childhood keep me in this push-pull. It's so hard to move on. So he can't even go no contact. I feel for him. And by the way, when you see me being really seemingly unsympathetic, it's because all the sympathy in the world won't help you either. I don't care if being sympathetic, if having a sympathetic ear and listening and co-signing your pain got you to take action, I would do it. But sometimes somebody has to say, look, you're the one holding the gun to your head. Nobody's doing it to you. You're the one doing it. You have to put the gun down. And if you can't do that, then you got to chop your hand off. You got to do whatever the hell it takes. If you're not willing to do whatever the hell it takes, this will kill you. And that's my experience with this. So I said to him, don't try and change your feelings, just do the 4 things. And then I gave the link to Codependents Anonymous. He responded, you're right. I've been fighting with how much I care for her and instead trying to concentrate on my awareness with what's going on inside myself, on working and understanding to change my patterns. That's meaningless. Your best thinking got you there. Even brain surgeons need to go to other brain surgeons to get cured. They can't do brain surgery on themselves. So if your best thinking got you there, your thinking isn't going to get you out because it's flawed. Your mind is not your friend. Your brain, especially the parts that are addicted to this whole chaos, that part of your brain is working to keep you in this. What this is a self-defense mechanism that has been flipped on and turned on its head, and it won't stop. So the thing that makes it so hard is that on an unconscious level, you honestly believe that your life depends on being abused by this person. You tell yourself that it's about love and maybe she'll love me. But this also shows somebody who doesn't understand what BPD is. You won't understand what BPD is until you get some distance. Until you go no contact and until you have distance, you won't understand where you've been. The only way to do that is to go no contact. Going no contact by itself won't do it. There are some people that are doing that, but it still isn't breaking the psychological attachment. So you have to, once you go no contact, the next thing you have to do is get to a meeting and get a sponsor. That's why I put that at number 2. Because you could go no contact and get a therapist. And we'll start working with a therapist. And then you start. It's sort of like taking part of the cure, but there's still more to do. But when you work the 12 steps, my experience, and only somebody who's worked the 12 steps has experience, can talk about the steps. Anybody out there who's telling you things about the steps, if they haven't worked them, they can't talk about something they haven't done. So I wouldn't listen to anybody who does that. Somebody said that their therapist said not to go to 12-step meetings because 12 steps would further damage them or would re-traumatize them. That's obviously somebody who's never worked the 12 steps, and you can't talk about something you've never done. I don't talk about how to become a plumber because I'm not a plumber. I don't talk about how to become an electrician because I'm not an electrician. I talk about what I know. And I can tell you from personal experience that therapy, I'm somebody who's been in therapy for 25 years. I go to group therapy, which again is a whole other level of therapy that has been very helpful for me. And even that hasn't had even 1/10 of the power that working, especially the 4th step, has. It literally changes your brain. It changes the chemistry of your brain. It breaks that trauma chemical bond, which this person can't get out of. He can't get out of the trauma bond. He's addicted to it. His brain won't let him. And so that's okay. That's why the first step is you're powerless. I'm powerless over whatever her name is. That means you don't try and feel good. Most of you ask me, how can I feel good? How can I get over this feeling or get over that feeling? And I say, when have I ever said you're supposed to get over a feeling? You're just supposed to have them. But you're supposed to be feeling powerless, feeling incapable, and not having the ability to change or walk away or heal. You're supposed to be there. If that weren't the case, there wouldn't be such a thing as this channel. There wouldn't be a need for it. You would just stop doing it. You know what? I think I'm going to stop eating popcorn. It would be challenging, but you'd be able to just walk away from it. So unless you understand, unless you've done the 12 steps, you have no idea what you're talking about. And you don't have the 20/20 vision to look back and see the difference. So this person doesn't have that, and I understand they're trapped in the addiction, and that's okay. You can still take action while you're trapped in the addiction. Anyway, I said something of that nature to him. Let's see, there was another comment that I wanted to address. Here's another one. This person says, not everyone that is understanding enough to care about a person with BPD is codependent, quote unquote, and certainly not anything like a narcissist themselves. So I've made a lot of really outspoken videos, and I've done it on purpose. I have been extreme on purpose to make you, what the hell is he talking about? Knowing that people are going to dislike it. But I did that on purpose because it brings it to light. No, if you don't have a personality disorder, you are not technically a narcissist. If you are a codependent who doesn't have a personality disorder and you get involved and enmeshed with a borderline and or narcissist, that doesn't make you a narcissist. But you are still driven by narcissism. And you are in denial over it. This is why people don't like the word codependent. They think they don't like the word codependent because it has the word dependent in it. And that's intolerable. Codependence can't, even tolerate the thought of being dependent because it's too close to home. Because the truth is they are completely dependent on somebody else's love and approval. Otherwise, you know, the first time that you got split on, you go, wow, I don't need that. I am not that dependent on your love that I'm going to put up with this. I'm out of here. Obviously you are. You wouldn't keep going back. So like we heard from the last guy, he can't walk away. He is dependent on the fantasy that someday she will love him. Even the fantasy, he can't even tear himself away from the fantasy of it. He's addicted just to the fantasy, the hope that someday. And you know, you've been there, I've been there. They split on you, they devalue you, they whatever it is that they do, whether they discard you or not, they devalue you, and it creates that trauma of, oh my God, the person that whose love I need the most, you know, what do I need to do? Oh my God, you feel like you're dying. You have to get their love back. And they gaslight you, they harm you, they do something. And even then, you'll take that pain as long as they're interacting with you, and then the hope kicks in. Then they hoover you back. They go to the other pendulum swing and they idealize you. And then the cascade of the oxytocin, the feel-good chemicals, the safety, because you've been in trauma. Your life, you feel as though your life was in danger. Now even if they're gaslighting you, but the promise is that it'll work this time. And then you have the discussion, and they are, because they're brilliant, many of them, and very intelligent, they can talk a good game, and they know what to say, and they might even mean it when they say it, and you believe that they have object constancy. You believe that they're going to remember you when they walk out of the room. You believe that they are going to follow through. They believe they're going to follow through. And then what happens, of course, the next day they wake up, it's Groundhog Day, it's a whole other day, and you don't know who the hell you're dealing with, and neither do they. And so this addiction of the hope, just the hope that it'll work, that will keep you there. That's dependency. If that's not the definition of dependent, I don't know what is. So I could, again, go into my definitions of codependence. We won't do that right now. But definitely what you don't know is that this is not unconditional love. You cannot, let me say something black and white, which a lot of people won't like, but it's the truth. It is impossible to love a borderline unconditionally. It's impossible. Because if you truly love a borderline unconditionally, number one, you will see them for what they are. They are infants on an emotional and psychological level that are just needy. They don't have the capacity to love you the way you want. You will see that without any judgment. You go, oh, that person doesn't have what I'm looking for. You will then know, oh, the best thing I can do for this person is definitely not get involved with them, because that's not helpful for them. That's unconditional love. That is empathy. If you have a need, to be loved by somebody, you are not in a space of unconditional love. Now, I'm okay if you know that, because real healthy relationships, people know that. They know that there is, you know, everybody has a part they have to play. You have to do this for me and I do that for you. And as long as you know and everybody's clear on the deal, then it's a good relationship. The moment that somebody has a different idea of what the deal is, that's when people have problems. But you and the borderline are in two completely different worlds. The borderline has a totally different idea of what you're supposed to do, and they are definitely, you know, you are only there because you're there to meet their needs, and if you don't meet their needs, you will be kicked to the curb faster than you can spit. You already know that. But what you don't know is that the same is true for you. That you want them to love you. That's why just the promise of them loving you is enough to keep you in it. So you're dependent. I mean, however you look at it. That makes you codependent. And that's narcissistic. Narcissists are not evil geniuses. Narcissists are the ultimate in codependence. And, you know, I love the scale. I didn't make it up. but I absolutely believe it. You have a full-blown narcissist, NPD, sociopath, psychopath, those that do not have empathy for others. Those people have been completely damaged to the point where they have no self-image. They also have a personality disorder, meaning that they have psychosis. They don't have object constancy. They don't have memory. They don't see you as a real person. That's a result of, a very serious mental illness. And they are completely on every single relationship they have, even the relationship with just reality, is a transactional relationship. From their perspective, if they're not perfect, they'll die. They believe that they have no value, and if they aren't perfect, they will die. So what do? They create a fantasy where they are perfect and everybody worships them. That's a self-defense mechanism. It's an infantile self-defense mechanism, and everybody is snapshotted, reduced to a 2-dimension, and then brought into their fantasy. And as long as you follow their fantasy, you're okay, which of course is impossible. And those that don't, they mercilessly persecute till the day they die. They will persecute and never, ever forget anybody that did not fit their fantasy, who did not bow down and worship them. Or at the very least, they perceive they haven't been worshipped. That's one end of the spectrum. The next level of the spectrum is you have the failed narcissist. Again, I didn't make that up, but it's a perfect explanation of a borderline. Somebody who vacillates back and forth between the needy infant who hasn't created the perfect firewall, and they balance that. And then, of course, then the other swing of the spectrum is the psychopath, the narcissist that has not only no empathy, but is completely bent on your destruction. It's hard to say which one is worse, the narcissist or the borderline, because when the borderline is bad, it doesn't get any worse. Borderlines will eat narcissists for lunch. Even the narcissist cannot compete with the borderline. When they go psychopath, there's nothing that comes close to it. And if you're a borderline and that doesn't describe you, then you're not a borderline. Because that's the definition of a borderline. This is going back and forth between the needy infant to the psychopathic abuser. And if you don't understand that, I invite you to go do some research and talk to the people in your lives. And if they don't, when they're being honest and, not worried you're going to destroy them, they're going to tell you that you hurt them very badly and you're not going to remember. And if you do remember, you will justify it. And if that's not the case, then you don't have BPD. Those of you who are in relationships or have been in, until you go no contact, you won't see that. Which is why on this channel, you'll see the people that leave the most hateful comments towards borderlines are ones that have been out of a relationship for a length of time. The ones that are still in it, they vacillate back and forth. They say, but I still love them, but they're not that bad, but they're still a good person. They just need a lot of love. They've been through so much. Those are the people that are still close to it. They've only just been discarded, or they're being discarded, or they're in and out. They haven't. But those that have been discarded and tossed aside, after the time builds up, you get enough realization that you have been narcissistically abused. And then that's when people leave these horrible comments about how horrible and evil the borderlines are. So this person says, not everyone that is understanding enough. So in other words, this is an empath. Only those people who have more than adequate understanding are the ones who care about BPDs. In other words, if you don't care about a BPD, then you don't have understanding. But as I just got through saying, understanding is the least thing that you have, because you don't even know who you're with. You think you know, but you have no idea who you're with. So this person doesn't like being told that that I don't recognize that they have understanding, and on top of that, that I tell them that they have narcissistic tendencies, because that's the nature of codependence. Narcissism is in all of it, from the narcissist to the codependent, the borderline in the middle. You have narcissism is what brings them all together. Narcissism and codependence, they all share different aspects of narcissism and codependence. Otherwise, there would be no attraction. And if you don't know that, that's okay. When you do the 4 things, you'll eventually come to that realization, if you choose to do that. All right, let's see. Was there another comment I wanted to look at? Is this somebody else? This is a different person, but it's the same thing. I don't think it's fair to say anyone who is in a relationship with a personality disorder is responsible. Adults have relationships. It's perfectly natural. If someone is presenting themselves as an amazing person, most people haven't heard of personality disorders or know such a thing exists, or that people can lie or act to that level. The only difference between the happily married couple of 15 years next door and you, you're going to get personal now, you who had the personality disorder partner, is that you were unlucky that although they presented the same as your neighbor's partner at the start, yours was a very skillful con artist. They do get decent, good, healthy people and they sniff them out and are non-judgmental and loving. They find people who are non-judgmental and loving. So this person is saying, I'm non-judgmental, I'm loving, you know. The only issue is how healthy you are is how long you put up with it for once the shit starts before you get the hell out. So there's a lot of things I want to say, but my response to them based on the end, the only issue to how healthy you are is how long you put up with it for once the shit starts before you get the hell out. Now I didn't get a response from this, but I wanted one. And my response was, a couple of responses, but the one I wanted was oh, that was a different one. Same, the other one before, which is, so are you saying that you were in a relationship with a borderline and it wasn't toxic? Because what you're saying is, if what you're saying is true, is that somebody's healthy, they don't put up with it for very long and they leave. So what this person wants to say is, I'm not responsible for getting involved in this. I was conned by an evil genius, but I'm healthy because I got out. But I'm willing to bet if I talk to that person and I ask, so how long were you in that relationship? They're going to say they were in for at least a few months, if not years. And so for them, yeah, I was split on 100 times or however long it was, but I finally got it together and left. And then again, I'm going to say, so did you end the relationship? Because I'm willing to bet they didn't. I'm willing to bet they were discarded. I was discarded. But before I could get hoovered back, assuming that could happen, it might not have, I then went no contact, meaning I didn't, you know, I did announce to her that I was going no contact, but I also then followed up and I made it impossible for her to contact me. And I made it impossible for me to find out about her. That's going no contact. All right, so I could keep going, but again, anybody who says that they're not responsible are the same people who say that the borderline was an evil genius who planned up my demise and they conned me. And that person is asking to be hoovered. That, if you want to know the recipe for being hoovered, that's it. I'm not responsible. I didn't go looking for a dysfunctional relationship consciously or unconsciously. I didn't do it. It was done to me. I am a helpless victim. And the person I'm with actually doesn't have a personality disorder. They're just evil. So bear in mind, whenever you call a borderline evil, you are saying they don't have a personality disorder. Because if an evil person is somebody who has object constancy, who can put things together, who has an identity, and plans to steal or con from you, that is somebody that this person wants. This person wants their partner to be evil, because if their partner is evil, that means they can choose to be committed and loving. But if they have a personality disorder and they don't have object constancy and they don't have an identity and they're not able to string together time and keep themselves one identity, and stay committed. If that's not the case, then guess what? They won't be loved by that person. That's the most intolerable part. Remember, I said the addiction is the hope. So even those who sit there and yell and scream about how horrible and evil the borderline is, those are the people who are unconsciously wanting the borderline to not have a personality disorder, because that means at some point they could make the choice to turn around and love them. They'll deny that up and down, the codependent. They'll say, no, I hate them. They're evil. I want nothing to do with them. Those of you who say, I want nothing to do with them, I never want to see them again, you're actually saying they know what they're doing. One day they could turn around and love me. I'm pretending that I don't want it, or you may not want it, but the truth is you're hoping. Don't lie to me. Even I, if I want to, can tap into that feeling. I hope someday she comes back, and you still want it. But if you do the work, you will realize that they don't have object constancy. They never knew you or saw you. They don't remember you the moment that you leave the room, and they're incapable of loving you. When you come to that realization, then they'll stop being evil. And then they're a very damaged person that has a mental illness. Then you can forgive them and move on. And for me, the easiest way to do that is to do the 4 things. All right, let's see if there's any comments. I didn't realize I was going to go on for so long, but I like comments and questions. Ali Farhood, honest feeling. I feel much more empowered after working steps 2 and 3 of the 12 steps. See, I'm not making it up. The steps actually change your brain chemistry. I'm better at walking away from toxic situations, and it also has helped me control my angry, resentful impulses. And if you remember, I was really harsh with Ali. I kept saying to him, I don't want to hear from you if you haven't done the 4 things. Stop coming onto the channel and complaining, because I'll connect with you the first couple of times, but after I give you the medicine, if you don't want to do it, I don't want to co-sign your pain and your misery. And that's the kindest thing I can do for you, is to nudge you to stop talking and go do the work. So he's only on step 2 and 3, and he's already feeling better. I'm not making this stuff up. Nicole Johnson, let me see. I have never, all caps, experienced anything like this. Have you ever met to someone who has committed a crime with undiagnosed BPD? Have I ever spoken to someone who has committed a crime? I mean, somebody who had undiagnosed BPD committing a crime? Have I ever spoke or met with somebody? I haven't spoke or met with somebody, but I've certainly heard of it. But you don't have to be a BPD to commit a crime. You don't have to be diagnosed or undiagnosed. I mean, a lot of people commit crimes. So I'm not quite sure exactly what your issue is, but that's not unique to borderline personality disorder. Let's see what else. Kimia GH, question. My BPD boyfriend broke up with me 2 months ago and wanted me to be friends. Should I go no contact, although he's under therapy? Yes. Maybe he heals in the future and the relationship works. I told you, what is the thing that keeps you addicted? The hope. So let me give you some reality. It's great that he's in therapy, and I'm really happy for him, and I wish him all the best, and there's no reason why he can't recover. And there's no reason why he can't in the future learn to have a relationship. Here's the problem. It's going to take at least 10 years. Are you going to wait around for 10 years? Because if you don't and you get involved with him before that 10 years is up, guess what? You're going to be the cause of him not healing. You are codependently, you've already created that codependent dynamic with him, which means that you co-sign his illness and make him more ill. You don't heal him, you make him worse. The opposite is true. I'm willing to bet, Kimia, you haven't done the 4 things, right? So yes, you should go no contact. That is the kindest thing you can do for him, because you are a temptation. You are his drug. If you really care about him, then you will make it impossible for him to contact you. Why? Because when he reaches out to you and he can't find you, he will be aware of his pain, which will make him go get more help. It will make him reveal more of himself in therapy. It will make him work harder. At least that's the theory. So yeah, you have to be responsible. Before you didn't know any better, and now you do. And so the kindest thing you can do is leave him be. But it's also, you don't want, trust me, you do not want to be in a relationship with somebody who's just started therapy. It'll be as bad, if not worse. The likelihood of them being able to manage their symptoms it's going to be all up and down, and it's going to be a roller coaster, and it's going to drive you crazy. And again, you're not helping them. You'll make them want to leave, because they do the same thing in therapy that they do with relationships. They have a pendulum swing. So if they like the therapist at first, they're going to idealize the therapist. And I even read, some guy, his wife ended up sleeping with her therapist because he probably didn't understand BPD, and she seduced him into, a relationship. So they will do that. They will idealize the therapist. And then if they're able to tolerate when they go through the devaluation, the therapist, if they're good, will be ready for it. And the therapist will say, looks like that you're projecting onto me your dad issues. And so I want to hear about your anger towards me. Let's talk about that next time. Let's talk about why you want to stop seeing me. And let's get to the cause of that. That will never happen if you're in there mixing that up and getting involved and getting in between them and their therapy. They got to do that alone. Okay? And you need to do the 4 things for your own health. Not only for them, if you care about them, the kindest thing you can do for them is work on yourself, but so you can have a relationship. I don't know, maybe in 15 years he will have gone through therapy and he will be great. You will have gone through whatever your therapy and your recovery is, and maybe the two of you will meet, but more than likely, here's what's going to happen. You'll realize that you're not into him, because what attracted you to him was his craziness, and what attracted him to you was your craziness. And if you heal that, guess what? You'll both start moving in different directions. The likelihood, once you see them for, who they really are, and vice versa, the attraction shifts. You'll be attracted to a whole different kind of person. What else? Ali Farhood says, Mike, I rarely hear anyone online besides accurately describe the dynamic in a quiet BPD relationship. From watching YouTube therapists, they don't seem to grasp how destructive it is for both parties. I agree. And that's not anybody's fault. Therapists are people. And, just because somebody's a therapist doesn't mean they have any personal experience in something. And they may have read all the books and they may be able to talk about it, but if they haven't experienced it, there's going to be a level that they won't understand. I've said before, one of the videos I made was I recorded, I didn't play it because I didn't want YouTube to get upset with me, but I played this dialogue between 2 therapists, and they were talking about BPD stigmatization. And they were saying, one of them was saying, if you had your grandpa who was senile and they were acting out, you wouldn't judge them. You would accept them and you would work with them. And, and so people, they judge the borderline and blah, 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 And then the other person said, yeah, I would like to think, which means that they don't have any experience. I'd like to think that if I was dating a borderline, that I would know that this was their demons, and if they acted out, that I would have the patience to, and they obviously have no idea what they're talking about. Therapists still think that borderlines are rational. They're just really upset. They're just really sensitive, but you can rationalize with them. You can't. The whole thing that makes a borderline is that when they love you, they lose all rationality. If you are close to them and there's intimacy with them, whatever level that is, to that level, they have no rationality unless they've been treated. But if they're untreated, they don't know. So let me get to that. Let's talk about that. Just to give you an idea, of how out of touch an untreated borderline is. This, again, I'm not doing this to attack anybody, but let's see if I can find it here. This was somebody who needed to come on the channel and tell us, all those of us who think that borderlines are abusive, that we're actually the abusive ones, and that, you know, we're all just here to stigmatize them, and et cetera, et cetera. Let me find it here. I might not. Oh, here it is. So again, you've been on the other end. You're going to hear the psychopathy. This isn't an attack on this person. If this person is watching, which I doubt, but if this person is watching, I hope that she can see that what's missing is her complete inability to empathize and understand why people react the way they do to borderlines. There's a reason for it. And what, you know, the dynamic is that they're desperately afraid of being abandoned. That feels like death to them. And so their defense mechanism is to abandon you before you abandon them. Their defense mechanism is to judge you before you judge them. Their defense mechanism is to destroy you before you destroy them. So what that means is whenever that when they split on you and act out and you respond negatively, that justifies their already, see, I told you that person was out to get me. You are the ones, and you'll hear it. And even in the beginning, you hear the complete lack of empathy. There's a sociopathic lack of empathy and the inability to just try and acknowledge somebody else can have a different experience. So the first thing this person says is, the irony is that this comment section is full of people complaining about how bad borderlines are, when the people in the comments are actually the likely abusers of borderlines. Statistically. Well, there's no cure for ignorance, I guess. Now, if this person was a borderline, well, is a borderline, because of course, obviously I said, so let me guess, you're a borderline? And they said, yes, they were. But if this person is a borderline and this person is in therapy and this person is self-aware, then they've gotten a measure of ability to differentiate, to have your own identity, to individuate, that's the word I'm looking for, and to be able to go, wow, that person is having that feeling. That doesn't apply to me because I know that, yes, I have hurt people in the past, but I also have this awareness about myself. If you're comfortable with yourself, people can have their own feelings and it's not a reflection on you, and there's no need for you to talk people out of their experience. If they reflect that on you, you can say, well, that's not accurate about me. I can see you're in pain, but I didn't do that. But she doesn't do that. Every single person, according to her, that had a negative experience and had something negative to say about borderlines, they themselves are actually the likely abusers. This is called projection. This is called transference. This means this person has zero awareness of their impact, because just that first statement, I'm already devalued. If I'm somebody that's written, I was devastated by a borderline relationship, they destroyed me. If I write that, I am now already devalued by this person. I mean, to their credit, they're not being passive aggressive. They could, you know, reach out passive aggressively and then devalue me, but they didn't do that. They just basically just, no, not only did you not get abused, but you were the abuser. So I respond and I say, it's an interesting observation. Am I right to assume that you're a borderline? May I ask where you, and this was an honest question, may I ask where you saw these statistics? Where can I view them? How did you determine that people in YouTube comments are likely the abusers of borderlines? Now, I was hoping to have some statistical, study she was going to quote from, because how do I know? Maybe the majority of borderlines only date narcissists. Maybe 75% of the time they're abused. But I don't know. I would, if that were the case, I would want to know. I would be okay with that. I'm willing to accept that possibility. Borderlines are abused more often than not. That's important information. I want to know that. That's important for my healing, for my channel. So I won't get into it, but of course, none of that came out. None of those things came out. A huge, giant thing of, you know, all kinds of stuff that doesn't connect with all kinds of other different things. But she goes on to say that, you know, I'm tired of hearing people talk about this borderline abuse. There's no such thing as borderline abuse, meaning borderlines abusing other people. There's no such thing as borderline abuse. And then so I responded, and I don't remember what I said, but I know that I wasn't, you know, I actually first reached out and said, I understand your feelings about not wanting to be stigmatized. I put a lot of time into defending people, but it's also not fair to take away somebody's experience. You know, you don't know that. And if you're comfortable with yourself, then you don't have to, you know, devalue somebody just because they have an experience and it's not a reflection on you. And I said, this is exactly what happens. That borderlines unknowingly devalue people's experience out of their own insecurity. And I said something along those lines, to which she responded and said, because I also said, you didn't mention if you've been in therapy, because she's not acting like somebody, she's not talking like somebody who has any self-awareness of her behavior. And so she said, I didn't, let's see, where is it? I didn't mention therapy because it isn't relevant. I'm sorry? You have a personality disorder and therapy isn't relevant? I don't understand that thinking. That doesn't sound very rational to me. Sounds pretty confusing. And then she goes on to say that the waiting list for therapy is 2 years long. Well, I'm sorry about that, but that doesn't mean that, you know, anyway, that's not a justification. If you have a personality disorder, it's very unlikely you're going to become self-aware about it. That's if that were the case, it wouldn't be a personality disorder. It would be somebody who had an issue and I thought it through and I got over it. And that's not how it works. You can't get, you can't get over whatever it is, you know. You can't get over a psychosis by thinking it through. You're psychotic. You have a personality disorder. That means that you have a problem with objective reality. It's going to make it impossible for you to think it through, and you're not going to know when you're psychotic and when you're not. That's the definition of it. But of course, you're not going to know that if you're not in therapy. So she goes on to say, it seems like you can't bring yourself to make any sort of statement in support of people with BPD without adding a but on the end of it and accusing them of something, which is not true. As you know, if you've watched my channel, that's just not the case. So thank you for proving my point. So see, this is the borderline. The borderline is already looking for a justification to condemn you, you know, after the fact. They're gonna condemn you before you get a chance to even do anything worthy of it. So thank you for proving my point and repeating the harmful rhetoric that I was talking about. I sincerely hope you and your viewers can find some peace away from those who have harmed you. I also hope you can overcome your own issues without blaming them on an entire group of people and shying away from your own responsibility. So I'm being irresponsible, I'm blaming an entire group, etc., etc. Anyway, I don't know, that was in response to something somebody said. Oh, I rarely hear anyone online besides you accurately describe the dynamic of a quiet BPD relationship. I'm not, you know, I'm okay. I'm sure there are plenty of people who can. I'm glad that I do describe it in a way that you find to be accurate, but I know I'm not the only person out there who can do it. But it's a nice compliment, thank you. Tammy Hart question, my ex-borderline kept accusing me of cheating. I later found out he was. Is that a thing with them? That's a thing with everybody who cheats, not just borderlines. That's, you know, if you know you're somebody, well, it's not 100% proof, but it's a good evidence that your boyfriend's cheating on you if he's constantly grabbing your phone and saying, who are you texting? I know you're texting somebody. Who are you just on the phone with? Where were you yesterday? That's projection. They're guilty because they're cheating, and so they project that guilt onto you. Now, that's not always the case. Sometimes they're just paranoid. But no, that's not just a thing with borderlines. But if a borderline is cheating, but borderlines are already afraid you're going to cheat on them anyway. So, we could get into that. They do. They don't have object constancy. So when you walk out the door, they forget you exist. So they don't feel like they're cheating on you. But if you do it, you'll be cheating on them. Sometimes they're not cheaters. They're just really paranoid. So no, to answer your question, no, that's not just a thing with borderlines. Do all female BPD cheat? No, not all of them. Kay says, Mike, anyone who calls himself an alpha male is supposed to take you seriously after saying, I don't know when I said that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to swat a fly. There are some mosquitoes out there. They know who they are. And so I absolutely know this is a fake profile. And I like swatting flies. So I'm going to swat this one. Ready? Everybody watch this insect get smashed. You ready? Hiya! Okay. I don't take any abuse from anybody. What else? Okay, people talking to each other. Fernando, honest question. So Fernando, you're on thin ice with me. What have I said? It's time to do the 4 things. I don't want us to get into it. You know what the secret is. Go do it. If your question isn't about how to heal using the 4 things, I'm not going to answer it. Why? Because I want you to heal. And if I continue to co-sign you not doing the work to heal, I'm not helping you. He says, honest question. Mike, I have a CODA meeting tomorrow. Let's all stand up for a round of applause. Fernando, good for you, my friend. That's it. All you have to do is do the action for today, and you've done the best. You're doing the best you can now. So, all right. Phew! I apologize for thinking the worst of you. You showed me the best of you. You said, I have a CODA meeting tomorrow. It's a Zoom meeting. Does this have potential to be effective? Buff. I don't know what that means. What do you mean, does it have the potential to be effective? I don't know what that means. It's going to be whatever it is. The only thing that matters is that you showed up. So the only thing that you're required to do is show up and stay for the whole meeting. Whether you like it or hate it is irrelevant. Whether the people that share have awareness or healing is irrelevant. The only thing that matters is that you showed up and you did your part. Now, my suggestion for you, I'm not your sponsor, but my suggestion for you is to raise your hand, your little virtual hand, and say, I'm new, I need a sponsor. And if you're able to get a sponsor, great. If they might tell you, well, you have to go to X amount of meetings before, they might do that. But if they do, then say, great, I need somebody's Zoom or their email. I want some contact because I want to stay connected. And then instead of asking me all the questions about that, you can type somebody else. And then you'll be helping somebody else, because that person whom you're interacting with, by asking them all the questions I don't want to answer, you are helping them to recover. So you just have to do one thing at a time. So whether it's going to be effective or not, you're not in a position to know what's effective and what's not. You may hate the meeting. You may absolutely hate it. But my suggestion to you is to keep doing it, because what are the 4 things? You have to work all 12 steps. This means you have to go to a lot of bad, stupid meetings and listen to a bunch of codependents whine and complain. Right? So it'll be effective. The answer to your question is yes. It'll be effective if you stay for the whole meeting and if you do everything in your power to get a sponsor and or get somebody's contact information. If you've done all of that, no matter how bad the meeting is, it will have been effective. And you will wake up the next day and then you'll have to do more of the 4 things tomorrow. But at least for that day, today you've done what you needed to do. And tomorrow, if you show up to the meeting, you will have done what you needed to do. And then the day after that, you're going to have to do what you need to do that day, which will be different. So you just do one day at a time. Just do the next indicated thing. How you feel about it, meaningless. Abdul, if you have a question, write the word question for me. It says, would a BPD girlfriend tell you if she cheats? I don't know. Maybe she would, maybe she wouldn't. What difference does it make? She's got borderline personality disorder. She's not rational. She has a personality disorder. She doesn't, when you leave the room, she forgets you exist. She doesn't think she's cheating, even if she is. But maybe she cheats, maybe she doesn't. What do you care? The point is that you're dating a borderline. I was met a couple other women when we were on a break. After she found out, she came and informed me that she had cheated. And that doesn't mean she's borderline. Then she says she didn't cheat as we were not together. Is it just her bruised ego making her take revenge, or is she speaking the truth? I don't care. Such drama. Who gives a shit? Just a bunch of drama, my friend. I'm only interested in helping you if you're trying to get out of a relationship with a borderline. If she's not borderline, then, you know, I wish you all the best, but there are other places to go for that. I just want to help people who are with a borderline. And if you are dating a borderline and you become aware that she's a borderline, then my suggestion is to end your participation in the relationship. So even then, it doesn't matter. You're breaking up with her, so it doesn't matter if she cheats or not. Okay? Fernando, honest question. Mike, do you know what happens to BPDs in their old age? All right, so now you're asking the nonsense questions I don't want to answer. I don't care. Do they become lonely cat people or get better on their own? Because surely they can't keep anyone around with such... Yeah, so we're not going there. We're not going into that drama. I appreciate the... It's not an honest question. You either have a question or you don't. So, Fernando, you're now moving in the right direction. This question that you're asking keeps you in your craziness. It doesn't matter. If I answer the question that yes, they all become lonely cat people, how does that help you recover? If I say no, when they become older, they get better, how does that help you recover now? None of the answers to these questions help you. Only you, well, you can do whatever the hell you want, but my suggestion is to ask the questions that are going to help you heal. Not, you know, worrying about them. We're now out of that. We're now somewhere else. Abdul basically says he's with his girlfriend for 2.5 to 3 years, and he finally told her that she's a borderline, and she's then started to be abusive towards him. Well, nobody likes to be told that. The mistake you made was to tell her that she was a borderline and then stay in the relationship. I know, I made the same mistake. If you honestly think she's a borderline, then you don't really understand what borderline personality disorder is, because if you did, you wouldn't stay in it to tell her that. You're acting extremely codependent. Do the 4 things, my friend. Tanisha Lulu question. Mike, how do you deal with a toxic inner critic? You don't. It's just there. You do the 4 things. I have developed greater emotional literacy and more aware I am of my own emotions. The more I become so consumed with my emotions, even the negative emotions, sometimes it's really, really bad. I hear you. I've noticed, though, the overriding thought I have, everything stems from my thought that I'm not enough and I'm deficient. So the good news is now you're finally aware what's been driving you this whole time. I can't remember, Tanisha, if you're a borderline or a codependent, but both borderlines and codependents have this same thing, and it's horrible. And unfortunately, like I said in the title, the healing is the most difficult and the simplest thing you could ever do. The 4 things are simple. There's nothing complicated about it. Anybody can do it. You can go to a Zoom meeting if you have internet from anywhere in the world. You can go to a Coda meeting. You can find online counseling, even free online counseling. You can go no contact, and you can meditate. All of those things can be done. Anybody can do it, and you might even be able to do it, all of them, for nothing. You know, certainly 3 of them are free. So it's the most simple thing to do, but it's the most difficult. As you heard from one of the first quotes, the guy couldn't, he can't go no contact. He's in horrific pain and he can't walk away. He knows what to do, but he can't do it. It's not that walking away is complicated. It's very simple, but he can't do it. That's the whole idea. It's the most simple and most difficult thing you'll ever do. And this is why, because if you guys want to know why, what's going to happen when you go no contact, after a while you will end up here where Tanisha is, where you become aware that what's happening is inside of you, that you feel you're not enough. That's called codependence. Codependence is a dynamic where all love is transactional, meaning that your value is completely dependent on what you do, not who you are. Now you've become aware that this feeling that lives within you was very likely, started by your parents. Your mom did not make you feel that you were loved just because you existed. Your mother made you think that you had to be perfect. And this is where the codependents typically are caregivers and caretakers, because they're narcissistic borderline parents or their alcoholic parents or something like that made them feel that in order to have value, they have to meet their parents' needs. They have to do something, even if that's be happy all the time, make everybody be happy, make cookies, help mom in the kitchen. I'm going to be a good girl and I'm always going to be happy. It's a transactional relationship. And when you realize that and you're left alone with that and you become aware from doing the work, you realize that you feel you have no value in and of yourself. And that's a very, very extremely, excruciatingly painful place to live. That's what that other guy's talking about. But he doesn't know it yet. He's in excruciating pain because his girlfriend won't love him. What he doesn't realize is that it's not about her, it's about him. That he doesn't think he has any value just by existing. I'm slowly learning that. I've been single now for, since my fiance passed away, 2017, 4 years now. And I'm learning that slowly every day. I'm learning it's just okay. I'm just because I exist. That's why I surf. When I'm surfing, I'm loved by the ocean and the waves and the water, and I'm all by myself a lot of the times, and it's beautiful. But that's not an easy place to be in the beginning. What else? Even though I'm beautiful by conventional standards, I just constantly feel like I'm not, and that I'm deficient and need to fix myself. Right. So you've learned, you didn't say it, but I'm willing to bet you probably have learned to use your good looks to get love and attention and approval. But it's empty because it's transactional. People aren't loving you for who you are. They're loving you for the way you look. What about hypnosis? Don't waste your time with it. Okay, Elon has some helpful words for Tanisha. Good for him. Abdul Rumatali. So this is going to be, from now on, I've already told you to do the 4 things. So that's really what's important. I told her she has BPD, hoping she would look for the right kind. Yeah, so you think you got a unique situation. You're just saying everything all of us have said. You're still trapped in your codependence. And you didn't tell her, just to let you know, you didn't tell her because you cared about her. You told her because you wanted her to be a good girlfriend. If you care about her, what you do is on the way out the door, you say, this relationship is unhealthy for me. It's got not, you don't make it about them. You say, this relationship is unhealthy for me. I need to leave and go no contact. I think you might have BPD. Check that out if you think that's the case, and then you leave, because maybe they don't know. But you've already told her, so now she knows, and now there's no point in repeating it. Now it's time to get the hell out. And it doesn't matter that she's been meeting a therapist on and off. None of that matters. That's none of your business. None of your business what they do or what she does. You've told her if she wants to, she can go and find a therapist who might diagnose her. If she says, I think I might have BPD, that's now her responsibility, and it's none of your business. So get the fuck out of her business and get out of that relationship. And with love, what I'd like to tell you is only ask me about how you can heal and do the 4 things. From here on out, I want to answer questions about the 4 things. If you don't have questions about that, I'm probably not going to answer your question. Not because I don't care about you, but because it's not helpful to you. Tanisha, yeah, I understand what you're talking about. Yeah, you're in a lot of pain, Tanisha. I still go through that same pain, so it just gets deeper and you learn more as time goes on. But you can heal. If you're doing the 4 things, you can heal. What else? Tanisha Lulu, I'm not BPD, but I do have strong BPD traits. Of course you do. So do I. Because I don't split on people. And the reason why you don't split, the difference between you and a borderline, because I say, you know, I didn't make this up, but I think it's absolutely correct, that a borderline is a failed narcissist. They can't make that impenetrable firewall, you know, fantasy perfection. They can't hold it. So they have, quote, empathy, which doesn't mean anything except that they feel empathetic, but it doesn't give them the ability to act with consistent empathy, so it's meaningless. They don't like hearing that because they, like an infant, like all of us, want to be loved for their feelings. So when they feel empathetic, they think that is a badge of honor that they should carry with the rest of their lives, but they're not willing to then realize that that empathy has to be followed by consistent action or it's meaningless. In fact, it's worse than meaningless. It's actually torturous. The worst kind of torture is to make somebody think that you care about them and then to split on them and act with sociopathy and psychopathy. That's worse than just being a psychopathic abuser. It's worse. It's torture. So that's why they need to learn how to manage their behavior so that they, even when they want to split and want to destroy somebody, they act with a compassionate action that they don't have compassionate feelings connected to. Then they understand what true compassion is. That's what the rest of us have to do to a lesser degree. So you don't have a personality disorder, and so you have borderline tendencies, but you have object constancy and you have an identity, so you don't split. But you have all the same core, because as I said, borderlines are failed narcissists and codependents are failed borderlines. That's my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. Believe it, accept it. Doesn't matter to me. What else? Your mother's BPD, so that's awful. So no wonder you're in so much pain. I wonder if it's worse. I could be wrong, but I think my mom had certainly BPD tendencies. I think my grandmother was borderline. But my mom did some serious borderline things and split on me in some really fucked up ways that fucked me up. Forgive my French, but that feeling that you're having, I totally share it. And I've wondered if it's worse, you know, because at least borderlines can dissociate. I can't. I don't have that ability to dissociate. I remember and I stay with it and I have object constancy. So imagine having the pain that the borderline has, but not having the luxury of dissociating and splitting. I think it might be worse. I could be wrong about that. I don't have to compete, actually. They're both really bad. They're both just horrifically painful. And codependents suffer, you know, in their own way as much as borderlines. All right, that's it. I don't got anything else. There's no more questions, so we'll leave it there. Thank you so much. I wish you guys all the best. Stay healthy, stay safe, and I will see you guys next time.